So I thank Soledad van Eyck from TNO. She's the business developer with TNO for taking over the moderation. Please, Soledad. And then we have Barbara Precinct from Byland, Patrick Crombes from Daikin, and Kieran Cuff, member of the European Parliament. So you see that we have also a good representation of the stakeholders from the political bubble here in Brussels. You could say they have it close, but nonetheless, they're all very busy. So I'm very thankful that they take the time to listen to the industry. But I leave the rest of the introduction and the moderation to Soledad, who can do that perfectly well. Thank you very much for taking over this role.
Thank you, Thomas. I think I don't need this. Here, you want to, here, okay. Thank you, everybody. Welcome here. It's nice to be the moderator of this session. And I think a lot of people already said it, but I will say it again. It's very nice to be back again at a stage instead of behind a Teams meeting. So, of course, that has its perks as well, but I like to see all of you here. So as Thomas introduced, I'm Soledad van Eyck. I'm a business developer at TNO, and TNO is a Dutch applied research organization. And today in this session, we'll talk about the versatility of heat pumps. And I think when you will see the people on stage, the versatility already will show from the different speakers here. At TNO, we develop, among other things, but what I focus on is developing of industrial heat pumps. And industrial heat pumps, I'm talking about heat pumps that are generating steam up to 120 to 180 degrees. And an example of what we do there is a Kickstart project where we will actually make 2 megawatt heat pumps together with industry and with the whole value chains. And we will implement them in the chemical industry and in the paper industry. And it's not just about developing these technologies when you're talking about the heat pump technologies. It's also about implementing these technologies and looking at flexibility. Because if you look at an industrial plant, will you go completely to heat pumps right away, or will you keep your gas boilers? And if you will keep a gas boiler, how will you introduce this flexibility? But this is from an industry standpoint of view, but also if you look at built environment. I mean, implementing heat pumps for the built environment also is talking about flexibility. So will you go for complete electric heat pumps, or will you look at hybrid heat pumps, where you also will still use some of the gas available? And 2 of the speakers today will give reflections on that. I will introduce them shortly. They're still being mic'd up, so that I will continue. But if you look from, so then you're talking about the market perspective of these type of heat pumps and about the technology development. But I think something that came along already for a couple of moments during today is that the policy side of this is also very important. So if you have your technology and you have your market ready, what needs to be done within policy, and what is Europe actually doing in this perspective? So also today we'll tackle some of this. So I'll introduce the speakers, therefore I have to look on my phone because I don't know that by heart. The first speaker joining me on stage is Barbara Precinct. She's Global Business Unit Manager at Heat Pumps and Renewables at Valiant. She holds a PhD at the University of Vienna and has taken part in the executive training of INSET, Harvard Business School, and the Thunderbird School of Global Management. Nice that you're here. She's held various international and national positions in sales and marketing within ExxonMobil. She was general manager in Austria, distributor cluster manager for Central Europe, and marketing manager for Europe, Africa, and Middle East. And based at that time in Brussels. And after an assignment for Eni in Rome, she started working as a manager director in Austria for Valiant. And in 2017, she moved to Germany again, where she was assigned as group director and set up a global business unit for heat pumps and renewables for the Valiant group. Besides that, she's also a board member of the BWP Germany, which is the German Heat Pump Association. So, things that's very well connected to this. Next to her is sitting Patrick Crombes. He is General Manager Heating and Renewables at Daikin Europe. Patrick holds a degree in engineering in nuclear sciences from IHR Mol, Belgium, and has an MBA from ISAL in Brussels. He started his career at Daikin in 1991, and over the years he took part in international assignments in France and initiated distributor activities in Russia, CIS, and the Middle East and Africa region. Finally, after another expert assignment in the UK, he returned back to the head office in Brussels and in 2017 and was the head product strategy and marketing from the start, from the heat pump entry at the European Development Center of Daikin. And since 2016, he's assigned as the general manager and head of the heating business in EMEA for the Daikin Group. Welcome, welcome, nice to have you here. And finally, we have Sharon Coffey. He is a member of the European Parliament representing Dublin, and he's a full member of the Transport and Tourism and the Industry Research and Energy Committee. He formerly has chaired in the Dublin City Council for the Transport Committee and is passionate about walkable, bikeable and livable cities. So that's nice. He served his terms in, and this is, going to try to pronounce this, Deel Erian. Am I close? I hope so. And was a Minister of State with responsibilities on climate change planning and sustainable transport. And during his time in government, he reformed the Irish planning system to focus on evidence-led decisions making. Furthermore, he was just completed a Master of Science in Cities at the London School of Economics, and he holds degrees in architecture and urban planning from the University College of Dublin. So nice to have you here. I believe that we have a first slide. We have 2 slides, I believe, from this session. And the first slide, maybe that's, I'm checking. And if we don't have the, there's the first slide. This first slide gives a bit of an overview on how you could use heat pumps within the built environment. And it shows different types of ways to integrate it. And one of the first questions I have for you, Barbara, is if you look at this system and the different markets, where do you see that heat pumps and hybrid heat pumps play a role?
Yeah, Soledad, first of all, thank you for giving me the first question, and great, to be here. When asking, for where I see hybrids as a, let's say, best fit in a way, for me, it's greatly the renovation sector, especially one-family houses, but also multi-family houses and in cities. I think hybrids are a very good instrument in the way of to accelerate the speed towards reducing carbon emissions to reach them in the Paris climate targets on the one hand side. On the other hand side, it has to do a lot with affordability for staged renovation. And I'd like to give you one practical example. One of my guys in my team, he's a young father, baby in September born, and he bought a house. It was an old house. He's going to start to renovate this house. And he bought a heat pump. He bought naturally a violent heat pump. Huh? Yeah. And he said, okay, Barbara, clear, I have my heat pump. But on the other hand side, I keep my condensed boiler. And then I said to him, why on earth are you doing that? Give me the reason why. And he said, okay, first of all, I get for the heat pump, I really get, good subsidy. And I know also it's linked, to the development of the government and the coalition. We had just recently, the elections. But I know, that the CO2 price will come. But at the moment, I also need to have a look on my running cost, and I can perfectly manage this, through my controls. And I can perfectly manage and I can perfectly swap and switch between the different energy grids. And I know, most probably in a couple of months, CO2 pricing will start to compete a bit, with the gas prices, and then I can step by step switch, to electricity. So, as I said, it has to do a lot, with affordability, and I think we should not underestimate the mindset of customers. And this is, I think, where at the end of the day, also the politics has to play a vital role in setting up, the right framework. Just what you heard, this morning.
Yeah, thank you, Barbara. That is actually what I'm hearing, and I like to refer back to previous speakers. This regulating, this comes back very to the smart systems that we were talking about before. So Patrick, also from Daikin, I'm very curious on if you look at the same way at this picture, and also there is a second slide which shows a bit on market potential, which I also would like to ask you to maybe already give a reflection on, but maybe first reflect a bit on if this vision is...
Okay, well, thanks a lot also for the introduction. And I would like to relate quite a lot to what Barbara is saying. The market, and it was said before, the picture is showing it to some extent. There is not one market. There is not one market. There is not one Europe. So I think we need many solutions to tackle the targets that are being set forward. And it was also said we cannot fail the targets. So it needs to be achieved. And therefore, I think hybrids can play a role. And in some countries, they will play a bigger role. And in some other countries, they play a lesser role. You could imagine probably in new build, they will play a lesser role. And in refurbishment, they will play a bigger role. And then it's down to how this can all be balanced within the grid, because they can be an important contributor also to smartening the energy vectors. So from a number of points, they can be a very positive contribution to solving the issue and to move ahead. Will they be the final solution? I think that's still an open question, but I don't even think that we need to answer that one right now. We have a target towards 2030 where we need to achieve 55%. Can they contribute to 55%? Certainly they can in some way, shape or form. So we are a quite strong believer that indeed a mix is needed, and therefore hybrids can play a substantial role in this in the rollout towards the 2030 targets.
Okay, thanks. And you've provided a slide, and maybe we can put that up for next. I think you can see it there. That shows a bit your vision also on this market potential. You touched upon this already a bit, but maybe you can talk also the people here a bit through your vision on the market evolution for the heat pumps.
Yeah, again, this shows, let's say, a summarized European picture, which again, country by country will be very different.
Yeah.
But I think all in all, it was said earlier today that new build is pretty much a segment of the market, single family, which is pretty much tackled, and the solutions are pretty clear for that. Some countries go faster, others go slower, but I think in general the tendency is there. The point is the replacement market, obviously, and then you have the big differences between the on-gas market, the off-gas market, and how do you tackle, in some countries, the on-gas market is huge, and still we have to decarbonize a certain part of that. And I think it's within that segment that I personally think as Daikin that hybrids can definitely play a role in the next 10, 15 years to take the first step into decarbonizing that part of the market, and thus contributing to the 2030 targets.
Yeah, thank you. If you're saying that you are foreseeing that it will play a role for the next 10 to 20 years, do you think it's a solution that will stick after that? So hybrid heat pumps, not heat pumps itself, but hybrid heat pumps.
I think that's $1 million question, I would almost say, and I don't think as an industry we can necessarily answer that one for the moment. The question is, what is the hybrid finally? What is the contribution of the heat pump side? What is the contribution of the gas side? And at one point, is it still economically interesting for gas companies to provide gas if the amount of gas you're using is dropping and dropping and dropping? And this is the part which is unclear. So finally, I think economics will prevail to some extent in that. And at this stage, I think the hybrids offer this flexibility. And finally, again, country by country, maybe even area by area, it can be a continuous solution. to the extent that in some areas green gas or hydrogen will be available, maybe in other areas not. And just this building in this flexibility at this moment of time can be an interesting scenario.
Yeah. I would see it really from three different aspects. The one aspect is really about what I mentioned before, the political framework. I think the big challenge is now how fast the local governments are in, let's say, putting what we heard this morning or bringing the mindset change of the people in by green taxes, incentives, maybe also regulation, what we also see. So that's the one aspect. The other aspect is also what I think is that the installer has to place definitely a pivotal role. And I think we as an industry, we need to, first of all, make them passionate about heat pumps. And we need also, let's say, bring or help them to upskill. What we also heard this morning, moving from a traditional installer towards a heating and cooling and solution expert. This is a big step forward. And the other one is really about looking, how other technologies like hydrogen, is stepping up.
Yeah.
And I would see that really as a kind of also good competition in technologies, because at the end of the day, it's about reaching the target.
Yeah.
And I think we shouldn't be too dogmatic.
Yeah, and I see that well. What I find interesting is that you're saying that also other technologies are arising. So how are you looking at from a technology provider, so from the industry point of view, the product that you're providing actually to your client? So if you're talking about a hybrid heat pump, so the example you mentioned, it's a normal heat pump and then you do smart integration. So what solutions are you looking for so that the product somebody is purchasing is actually robust for the several options that you can't foresee yet?
Look, I think it really goes together with what the customers are looking for, and it really goes also together. We had a couple of examples. Where I would say the creativity of engineers. Never underestimate that. And I can give you also another example. Coming from my home country, I'm from Austria, where we leveraged in one project low temperature district heating with heat pumps, with small heat pumps, which you can put them on the wall. So it's a 3 kW. That works also perfectly. So I think also as Enrique before said, there are different opportunities and possibilities to go with hybrids in different use cases. Where I think where is a way to go is really in decentral multifamily house use cases. And this I think where we as an industry need to bring things forward.
Okay, thanks. Both of you, so both Barbara and Patrick, were mentioning that you see especially a role for hybrid heat pumps in renovations. And also and their policy also plays a role. You already mentioned that for the heat pump side of the innovation, you get some subsidies. So I have a question. I have to speak a bit for the abbreviation for Cherian. It's about the Energy Performance Building Directive. So this is, how do you think that this directive will actually help with renovations and implementation of these technologies as hybrid heat pumps?
Yeah, well, I think it'll be a real driver for change. It's got to be remembered that the Energy Performance in Buildings Directive, it's one of the 16 measures that we're going to see, legislative measures that we're going to see coming through the European Parliament over the next 2 years. And we've got to ensure that we work with the Energy Efficiency Directive and with the Renewable Energy Directive on this. But more specifically, we have to adopt the energy efficiency first principle in all policies. And I think that will lead to reducing the energy demand for heating, cooling and hot water. And I think the revision of the Energy Efficiency Directive as well will give an opportunity to embody that principle into European legislation. And then we have to identify and electrify the residual demand through renewable energy combined with heat pumps or efficient renewable district heating and cooling systems. And we'll have a chance to expand on this in the Fit for 55 package with both the RED and the EPBD. And this also extends to transport, where we're calling for charging points to be part of renovations. So we're seeing this synergy between not just looking at buildings by themselves, but linking it in to transport and mobility as well, and also, of course, to district heating systems. In a sense, we're trying to turn the super tanker around and change the engine at the same time. So it's a complex challenge that we have. But look, I think for the first time we do have a level of ambition from legislators that we haven't really seen for a long time. So I am cautiously optimistic about what we can achieve over the next few years. Then more specifically, we need to bring communities with us on these revisions. And a point that I have stressed in my report on the renovation wave is that we need to have one-stop shops at a local level where communities can get the information on how to transform their heating systems and be handheld on that journey. So I think that is of crucial importance as well. So look, there's no silver bullet in all of this, but we need to bring communities with us. We need to make sure that the legislation is harmonized at a horizontal level across. And then, of course, we need the grants and incentives from member states as well as the top-down European legislation. So a hugely important role for member states to provide the incentives and the grants to help people on this journey.
Yeah, thanks. And I think that's something that came up today a couple of times already, right? That everything is interlinked with each other. You can't see heat pumps on standalone. You have to see in the bigger picture. And in this case, we're also talking about hybrid heat pumps, which is already looking at a bigger picture than just the heat pump, but how will you incorporate it with the current energy system that we're having? Barbara, just to go quickly to you, you were mentioning that you see these hybrid heat pumps that, at least as I heard it, that you see that it's really on, let's say, on household level. Would you see that district heating is also being brought up as a solution? What do you see that the added value of heat pumps or hybrid heat pumps, and maybe the differences between for the district heating solutions?
I think first for the district heating solutions, I'm always coming a bit from the customer perspective, because I think this is from where the pull is coming. And I think in the combination with district heating and heat pumps, the customers can really, let's say, optimize, their running cost. And this is, I think, the main pull, out of the market.
Yeah. And you lose this flexibility, you think, when you go for district heating.
Also with the grids, to optimize and to balance the grids.
Yeah. Okay. Patrick, is this just giving an idea of me, and maybe you give a bit of reflection? I see on the one side the flexibility you can gain as a consumer. Do you think there's a role also for energy suppliers to play in on this flexibility, and that they then would be interested on these hybrid heat pumps, or you think the customer will be the driver force for these systems?
I think absolutely utilities have and can play an important role in that. We've talked before about time of use tariffs and flexibility there, but you can extend that wider than just time of use tariffs on electricity. If you combine the other energy factors as well, you just can go further. So it's just an extension to some extent of the discussion we had before, that flexibility is important, integration of the energy market is important, and anything technology-wise that can contribute to that, I can see has a certain value to play in this field. And I think utility companies, as being an intermediate interlock towards the end user for that, have a very crucial part to play in this, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, thanks. Sharon, coming back to you. You mentioned that efficiency is a very important part on the EBPD.
Yeah.
What do you think? Do you think in the future also directives around renewable energy will be part of around this directive, or will the focus remain on efficiency?
No, I think we need both, and I think we are ratcheting up the requirement for renewable energy, and this will be of enormous importance in the years ahead. And at the same time, we need the regulatory change so that we phase out inefficiencies, so that we phase out gas boilers. You know, there's a debate at the moment about market-based mechanisms, about just put a price on carbon and everything will sort itself out. But I don't subscribe to that, because we need both the market signals, but we also need to look at the worst polluting systems and say, look, they have an end date, and it's much better if that end date is sooner rather than later. I think, however, it is a challenging time at the moment as we see gas prices rise in the short term. We see the doubling of the ETS price this year, and we see potential energy shortages as we come into this winter. But we do need to focus on the medium and long-term goals of what we want to achieve in the legislation, and we have to be careful that any short-term crisis is not confused with where we want to go. And there's people out there saying, I told you so, we need to slow down and not go too fast. But actually, if we'd gone faster towards energy efficiency and renewables, we wouldn't be having short-term supply chain problems. And then, of course, there's other global issues going on. There's geopolitics at work. But coming back to your question, we need to move fast, and we need to have a menu of options to drive that journey towards a low-carbon future. And there's no one single measure that will bring us all the way on this.
Yeah, thanks. No one single measure, I like that a lot. And what I'm also wondering is that we have here policy and technology providers present, consumers, I don't know if they're listening, but they are also part of this value chain. And this is a question maybe to all three of you, so I will see if you can all reflect a bit on that. So what is, in your opinion, the way policy, industry and customers should work together to make sure that that we know what the customer wants, but we also try to drive the customer in a direction, you know, to be more sustainable. So, are we already working in the right way? Should we work more together? Do you have some reflections on that, Barbara? Can I start with you?
I don't want to be too over optimistic, but thinking back, I mean, when I started with this business, 2017, I think tremendous progress is made. And I feel really also there is a mindset change, across the whole society in many countries. When I started, I think everybody said, okay, little small business, but it really got such a dynamic. And when I look, about the projections of the upcoming years, it is enormous. It is really crazy. What's going on? Let's be very frank. And I see a strong commitment. From the politics, I see a strong commitment. Coming from the European Commission on the Green Deals. I see that this is really cascading down. Into the local governments. So that's one part. I see a very strong part on, let's say, lobbying. Really good work. Across all associations across all countries. And I think we are in a constant dialogue with associations and also with politics. And I think it's clear if the target and if the objective and the way is when everybody is aligned on that, then it's only a question of implementation, which takes normally a bit longer. But I think we are on the right way. And as you said before, let's be a bit open towards different technologies, because at the end of the day, the target is the important one, and reaching the target is really the important one.
Yeah. I like this positive view. I'm curious if you're, you almost can't be negative right now, but are you also agreeing with Barbara, Patrick, or do you see room where we could work together on the fronts?
I think it's clear enough, I think, that the momentum is there. I think everybody in the room will say the same. I mean, there was lots of discussion about that today. So the momentum is there. I think the awareness is there. The link and the step that we are still about to make now, I think it's specifically in heating for an end user level, is that the link that they can also contribute to solving this issue with their heating system. This is the step that is about to be taken, and some people take it faster than others, but this is now the step to follow. The general awareness about we have an issue, we need to do something, is quite clearly there. The fact that somebody can do something with their own heating system in their individual house, and it can have a big impact, this is the message that is gradually, I think, sinking through. But I'm quite confident that this is happening day by day, and the more the technology is spreading, people are seeing from neighbors, etc., and you know how this goes. It's an oil, maybe not in this context, but
we have to find new ways to in our language.
Exactly.
Right?
There's things we shouldn't say anymore.
Yes.
Yeah, and one of the changes we're seeing is that the consumer is becoming this prosumer, that they are not equal partners with the utility providers, but they certainly are being given more flexibility and more control over what they consume. And I think that's a really important trend, to listen to the grassroots and to devolve power down to the grassroots, to have the ability to control what they're doing. But as well, I think there's a communications exercise needed. I had a late uncle who worked on the electrification, the bringing of electricity to Ireland in the middle of the 20th century. And he spoke about the importance of communication to families, to villages, to communities, to explain what this change could bring and what improvements it could bring in people's lives. I think we have to do exactly the same 3/4 of a century later. We have to explain the benefits. We have to bring people through the technology. We have to have road shows that make it clear what we're trying to achieve, both within people's homes, but also at a global level. So that problem and challenge of communication is always there. We have brilliant technology. We have fantastic abilities to control so much, but we need to communicate it in a simple way and listen back to what people are saying to us as we move forward with the legislation and the technology.
Yeah, thanks. That's really resonating with me. That's a personal thing about me is that I, apart from working at TNO and working on industry, I also am working in the municipality and trying to do some things there. And what you see is that a lot of policy is being laid down from European level to government level and at a certain point at municipality level. But the knowledge there about these important topics like how will you do this heating, will you do it per home and district heating, it's traveled down so many layers, and these people don't have the expertise to really focus on the technology. So this is really nice that you're saying we should really focus on explaining these technologies and what are the pros and cons and how would this actually benefit your home. Just briefly, because we're talking about the versatility of the heat pumps, and I have asked you, in a preparation, so there was a preparation, but so I work more in the industry side of things, but we were talking a bit, so you were saying a bit about the way you're looking at heat pumps and how hybrid heat pumps actually impact that. Do you have an idea how these solutions also would work for industry? Do you have some reflections on that? Would that be a solution?
It's more about you.
Yeah, I can.
Yeah, I think
I know it's slowly going in my field, and maybe we should stay into the built environment. I'm also okay with it.
I think on the industry level, it's not necessarily. The scale is different, probably in most of the cases the temperature ranges are different. But the combination of the technologies is the same, so it's a matter of combining, using the most efficient systems to their best of their abilities, And beyond that, you need to tackle potentially with other technologies. Finally, it's a combination.
Yeah.
I think any step forward from just remaining as is, from my point of view, is a step forward. And technology today allows to do that, which was highlighted in the previous session, that indeed cooling and heating is starting to merge much more together, which 10 years ago were two complete different silos. It was mentioned like that. I think these times are gone because technology allows us to combine, and this will also give possibilities for industries, sure.
Yeah, thanks. I see that I'm going very quickly through my questions, so and we have a few minutes left, so I will think of some new questions as well, but maybe also from the audience, there's already a few questions are popping up. So I will ask them some questions as well, but if you have some, please raise your hand and we will get somebody with the microphone, because I saw that it works in your direction. But think about it, raise your hand, and
yeah, I mean, just while we're waiting for questions to come in, I think a real challenge is skill sets as well in some member states of ensuring that we have a better system of training in technologies, and ensuring that people in mid-career, that craftspeople and professionals are completely au fait with the technologies that we're using. Because I think there is a certain fear of change, there is a fear of the new, both from the household, but also from the professional. And I think when we listen to the science, when we listen to those who understand the low carbon journey, they are saying we have to move so quickly, we have to speed up. And yet, when it comes down to speeding up, there are bottlenecks, there are supply chain problems, and we need to overcome these. And I know in my home country of Ireland, we need to ramp up the skill set of those working in the construction industry at all levels. And I've no doubt in some other member states there is an equal journey to be gone on. So I'm just trying to identify some of the challenges and some of the blockages that we have, because I know legislation in one sense is the easy part. The actual implementation of what you're legislating for is the real challenge, and I'm not sure if others are encountering this as well.
I fully agree, and let's say maybe it's fear, but on the other hand side, I mean, it's really about installers. I mean, they have to run their business. I mean, and they face a risk in changing things, and this is, I think, where we as an industry really need to step up. I mean, in supporting, installers and people around them. I mean, that we really, as I said before, make them passionate about heat pumps. And passionate about heat pumps means, first of all, get the right earnings, and secondly, also, have the right skills. And this is one of the potential hurdles which we have to overcome. That's clear.
And Barbara, maybe reflected, just curious, is this something, so you try to do this with the people, of course, working at Vaillant. Yes. Is there also, do you see that, of course, then there's always a difficulty, we hear that a lot about getting the skilled people, but do you have ambitions, or do you work on plans, for instance, interacting with technical educations, etc., to putting this on the...
Yeah, definitely. We are running, training programs, in different ways. I'd say the pandemic helped a lot, towards digitalization. So we're offering webinars. We also have small videos which people can use, which installers can use. We have buddy systems. So it's really about, speeding up, in upskilling. Definitely.
Yeah. I like that, because in that way you're... oh, we have a question, I see. Thank you, Thomas.
I'm here, sorry.
Okay, hi.
Hi, my name is Sander Gielen. I have a question about the hybrid solution that we just discussed. It seems like there is a risk that we have to invest first in a hybrid and then within a number of years maybe still upgrade to a full electric heat pump. And I'm wondering to what extent that could be a modular solution where you would be reusing the heat pump side of the hybrid, and then later on when your house is renovated you might need an additional piece of heat pump or something for the missing capacity, but then at least you would avoid having to replace the entire hybrid. Is that something that is coming or considered?
I think that's conceptually quite a feasibility. Yeah? I mean, today you also see that if you do refurbishments, you don't necessarily refurbish the full house at the same time, in bigger installations, I mean. And then as time goes by, we're just combining systems. And again, control is everything. So control allows us today to put these things together, to cascade systems in numbers of ways to be able to address that. But yeah, of course, I think that's one way to look at it, because one way of looking at hybrids today would and there's different definitions you can use on hybrids. Do you install a full system altogether? Do you keep the existing boiler and add on a heat pump, and then later on either indeed, as you mentioned, change the boiler or put an additional heat pump? So all of that is possible. I think the message that we would like to give, or what we are looking at as Daikin, as an industry, is indeed taking steps today is what is needed. And then again, any step that we take today is better than wait. So that's, I think, the approach that we are trying to take.
Yeah, I agree, and I think, not to forget, these are social aspects. It's really about the affordability. When we're talking about, okay, mindset change, fear, it really goes together, with the social aspects, because, these are really the primary needs. Primary need is people need to eat, and people need, to have warm homes.
Warm homes.
Yeah, very, very clear. And this is, I think, is an enormous social aspect, which we should not really ignore. I think we are in a very good position, but when you walk through the streets of Brussels, you can see, you can really see it. And this is, on the other hand side, the big opportunity, for this change, towards electrification or towards a carbon-free world.
Yeah. And is this something you're already seeing coming in practice in your work, that you see the questions that are arising from let's say, the customers, that they are so diverse as that we're talking here today?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah,
definitely.
And how are you playing into that? Because I can also see that from a business perspective, that also brings challenges along with it.
Yeah, I think how we play it in, but then we are back again, to the hybrid solutions when we're looking into renovation. When we're looking into renovation, it's the example which I brought in the beginning. I think it's a perfect example. Young family, they really have to look, on their also monthly, spends. And they are optimizing. They are trying really to optimize that. And this is what we as Weiland can also offer.
Yeah. So you help people optimizing their heat supply within house.
And there is no one single recipe. It's really about that you really need to think about what is driving the customer.
But I can imagine, just thinking, that that's different from the state of the art where we came from, where a gas boiler was, of course, you had different options, but there was less focus on flexibility. So the adjustability within the companies that you're working in, that is something I can imagine that's in top of mind then? Or is that something that comes natural, Patrick?
Well, flexibility is definitely, as a company, is a need to have. You cannot survive as a company if you are not flexible. The point today is indeed it's extremely difficult to forecast what a market will do. Hence, I think many people around the room will notice that there are supply issues, and there have been for a while. So, but these are things as industries we need to overcome, and we are overcoming as time goes by. As the volumes are growing, I think this will go into a maturity level, just like previously, indeed, the boiler industry has done, and finally things are leveling out again. So I think we need to, and we can, as industries, deal with that. We've had these things in the past. The boiler industry has dealt with it in the past. I think we will tackle that.
Yeah, thanks. I see that we have another question from the audience. Thank you.
Yes, hello, my name is Marta. I'm a representative from the Spanish Association of HVAC manufacturers. We have said that there is a drive force from the consumers and that hybrid heat pumps are a solution. I truly believe they are indispensable for renovation, but coming to something already said at the stage about the need to bring simple messages to the end users, to bring simple messages from the European level to municipalities. How creative can we be and convincing in such messages? Because, as an example, we have seen a stop in sales of hybrid cars because consumers were not sure what would be the long-lasting technology. And if you have a failure in your car, you bring it to one supplier. If you have the boiler and the heat pump, you have eventually two different maintenance companies. So the message is not simple per se, and resistant from the consumer, especially if you talk about 20 to 20 years, the 10 to 20 years, the 10 years doesn't sound like long-lasting enough to invest in a technology for heating your house. So my question, because I truly believe that one of the challenges for the sector is communication, is what can we bring to the table on this kind of simplified communication messages? That was it. Thank you.
Thank you. Very interesting. And I can imagine it's not a very easy answer, but is any of you, how creative can we be with how we say it, communicate to the public that hybrid heat pumps are here to stay?
Well, I know from my own political background in politics that we have to innovate and change on our communications messages on a regular basis. There was a time when we could hand out a piece of paper with a press release on it and expect it to be in the newspapers in the morning. That has changed beyond all recognition, and we now have to use social media to get our message across. And you know, we for a couple of years we think Facebook is the answer, and then it's TikTok. And what I mean is that our messaging has to be very quick to respond to public perception and to new ways of getting our message across. So I think we have to be as innovative with our messaging as we are with our technologies. We have to be prepared to move quite quickly and appeal to different markets to get that message across.
Yes, I like that. The question here, so maybe to reflect a bit on it, it's to also reflect maybe on how at home, you know, if we're talking about hybrid heat pumps being a solution because it brings flexibility, how will we convey this message that it's actually introducing heat pumps to the market quicker than just going for completely electric, without giving people the idea that they're buying into a technology that is very short. So let's say short term, so in 10 years no longer there. So there's something to think about. How do you communicate about that? With that, I have another question, but
I think we have a few more minutes, but
we have 50 seconds.
50 seconds is great. We heard this morning that we need more heat engineers, and Karen mentioned the one-stop shops, and we are also members in a project called Superhomes. So I wanted to check that once more. Is it not maybe more important to advise people to renovate their heating instead of discussing a specific technology?
I think advice is crucial, and I think the Superhomes scheme in Ireland has been very successful in getting a message out to those contemplating change and working with them on all aspects of it, from the actual physical changes that are required to the financing that needs to be made available. But I constantly come back to that issue of working with local agencies, having one-stop shops, establish it at a local level, and making sure that they are completely in touch with the communities that they serve with the right messages. And that message changes. It's going to be different in the Czech Republic than it is in Bilbao. It's going to be different to somebody living in a house in the countryside in Ireland to somebody living in a high-rise block in a city in Central Europe. But in all of these different regions, making available simple, digestible information to the community at a local level in terms of a one-stop shop that can have a physical presence or an online presence is a hugely important element in all of this. And allowing people to talk to people they can trust. And often that person they trust is their next door neighbour, or maybe it's the municipality, or maybe it's industry itself. But working out in each market who is trustworthy, who has the technical knowledge, and pairing up, making that relationship work can really deliver results.
Okay, thank you. And I want to thank all three of you, so Barbara, Patrick, and I have to, Karian, I have to
Kieran, yeah.
Kieran, sorry
okay.
for that, for the pronunciation. Thank you for being here and having this discussion. I think the last thing you saw, I think these technologies, as we're hearing, are already there. Still a lot to do on and thinking on how do we actually bring it to all consumers, but we had heard a lot about that this day already. So Thomas, thank you also for having me here.
It's a pleasure. I think it was an important discussion, and again, this is a flashlight on what we need to discuss. We could probably have a whole event on this topic alone, and it will not go away with us. We need this innovation, we need new ideas, we need convincing and educating end customers. We need to plant ideas, and I like that sentence because then I can hand over our gift to you. Thank you very much, Soledad.
Thank you.
A tree that grows and decarbonizes, Barbara.
Okay.
Thank you.
And
Thomas.
Kieran.
Thank you.
And now I invite everybody to move back to the food court. So we have made sure that you get at least a couple of thousand steps on your smartwatches for coffee and small desserts. And then please come back at 4:30. And of course, we wish the same to the audience online. Maybe take the time, walk around the block so that you're not spending the whole time sitting at your computer. And watch some green because that's good for the eyes. Thank you very much. See you soon.